And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, today we're taking a look at the game Castaways. Castaways is a game in which you have been, well, cast away off a ship, you've been shipwrecked, you've landed on a deserted island, think Robinson Crusoe, or Swiss Family Robinson, or any of these movies like this, and fortunately there's some other people with you, unless you're playing a one-person game, which you can do. You can play this game solo if you like to, and you have to figure out how to signal a ship and get off this island. Let's see how it plays. There's a lot going on in this game, and the board looks like, there's a lot going on, but it's not as confusing as you think. As I said, you're a castaway on this island, and each player is going to have a castaway that they're going to have. So let's take a closer look at the castaways. Each castaway comes in male or female form. So, for example, this guy does first aid, and she does first aid. It's Mary Rose. Ben Gunn is the cook, or you can have Juana Maria Nicholas, or Alexander is tough, or Vasa Sultana is tough. So, whichever one you want, so you have a lot of options here. There's 5 different characters. Each of them has a special ability here that they have. But the way this game works is each person has a specific number of energy. For example, with her, she actually has 7 energy. Over the course of the game, you are going to use energy. I'm sorry, use your own color here. So if you're blue, you'd use blue. And you'll use energy for different actions. If you're ever down to 0 and you need to spend energy for any reason, then you'll start taking injuries. Now, injuries can be taken through other means too. Injuries are never a good thing. And the problem is, as you take injuries, you're only going to be able to go back up to where the injuries come down. And there's always the possibility that an injury, each turn you roll dice, and injuries can turn into wounds. The problem with these black cubes is you can never heal those, while these are healable. There's different ways that you can heal them. So you have to be careful, and if you ever take 4 of these, then your character dies. So that's always something you have to watch out, be careful for. But keeping track of your energy is a really major point of the game. At the beginning of each round, you're going to turn over one of these event cards. Now, there's a certain number of event cards in the game, and that basically is how long the game is, and the number of event cards is based on how many players are in the game. You'll turn over an event card, and that event card has a couple things on it. It has a special thing, for example here, a ray of hope. Everyone gets 1 energy, yay! And also, you'll notice there's some cubes in the top corner there that show 2 cubes. When that happens, that means something from the ship will wash up on shore. That one showed 2 cubes, so as long as there's at least 2 cubes here, one of them will wash up on shore, one of the crates. So if there had only been 1 cube left, then this would have done nothing. Many times, these cards will also change the weather. You'll see here it shows stormy. So when that happens, I'll change the weather up here, 1 in this direction. And if there's stormy weather, as the weather gets stormier and stormier, it can put out fires and cause all sorts of problems. On the other hand, if the weather gets too sunny, everybody is going to lose energy. Finally, at the bottom of each event card are some items. If you have those items at the end of a turn and you fully explored the island, you will win the game. The problem is you have to get those very specific items, which isn't always the easiest thing in the world, and exploring the island isn't easy either. At the beginning of each turn of the game, whoever is the first player is going to be able to take one of these actions here. These actions can be very simple, like you get a food, draw 1 card from the coast deck, put one of them at the bottom of the coast deck in order to top draw 3. You can go fishing. There's a possibility that more cards will be added to this spot, and you have an option of doing these in a turn, but the first player has basically 1 extra action. After that, players are going to take turns. Each player has 2 actions, and they're going to be placing these actions on the board in different areas. Now, each time you go to a specific area, the first person there has to go in the top spot, and that will cost a certain number of energy. You can see here that this costs 2 energy to go there. Then the next 2 people, it's 1 energy, and the final person, it's 0 energy. You also can always rest, which is a way to regain energy, And there's many different places to rest because you're going to do these actions in order from top to bottom, left to right. So if I want to rest here after the first action, or I could rest down here, etc. And then over here, you can take one of the island actions. If you go there, you simply just pick one of these cards and do that action. So what are these actions? The top one here lets you forage for food. There will be some tiles here, and you turn these over, and sometimes they're 3, sometimes they're 0, 1, or 2, and it's a certain number of temporary food that you have each turn. Underneath that, you can spend actions to add wood to your reserve pile. Underneath that, you can write in your diary. When you write in your diary, you'll take one of these tokens. There's a pile of them next to the board, and they will give you a certain number of points, 2, 3, or 4 points. And we'll talk more about those later on. Down here, if there is a cube there that is washed up on board, someone can go there and turn over cards equal to the number of players, and everybody can take one of them in turn order, and each of these cards can give you special abilities. I mean, these cards are great. Here is a pistol, or you can find remnants of the hull, which gives you 3 wood tokens, or this blanket, which adds 2 to all your rest rolls, or the Bible, which can be a very useful thing, or perhaps sometimes something you actually need. The mirror is possibly one of the items that you need to get off the island. So that's all what you can do when you go there. You can also try to start the fire. You can pay as much energy as you want, and then you have to roll less than the number of energy that you spend. And if you do that, at the very bottom here, you'll see that there's a fire token right here, and you'll turn the fire on. And you can keep the fire going as long as you spend 1 wood each turn, and as long as the weather doesn't get too stormy. Then you can go here. Here is a help sign, which costs 12 energy in total. It's very tough, but you can save it from turn to turn. But you can go here and spend energy, and when that's done, then the help sign is built, and that's usually, the help sign is one of the main things that you need to get off the island. Or a giant bonfire, which costs 8 wood over turns to get that started. And then you can also build a shelter. A shelter here costs 3 energy and 2 wood, although you can get other people to help you spend that. And when the shelter is built, you'll place it near the bottom of the board. And the thing about the shelter is when people take rest actions, the better your shelter is, the better your rest actions will be. See, normally when you rest, you get 1 energy back, and you can get rid of 1 of your injuries. However, once you build the first level shelter, you roll a die, and on a 1 to 3 you get 1 energy, a 4 through 6 you get 2 energy. And if you can get all the way to the best shelter, a 1 to 3 gives you 3 energy, and a 4 through 6 gives you 4 energy, and you can get rid of 2 of your injuries. Now this is a big deal. You also have a storing spot over here where you'll be storing food. You have permanent food that can last from turn to turn, and then you also have those forage things which you have to use from one turn to the next, or else they're gone. So all this is going on. These are the different actions that you can take. Sometimes you'll find other things that you can build, and they'll be put in these spots, and you can go to those spots and build those things also. And then the biggest thing right here is the exploration part of the game. You can go there and send your people off to explore the island. When exploring the island, there's some pretty neat things here. You start off on the coast, and then you get into the interior of the island, and then the very interior, the top, going up the mountain. And you have to get one of the player's tokens, has to get all the way to the top here for you to be rescued. When that happens, the game is either over that turn or the turn after that, and you better have all the items on one of the event cards that has been turned over. These decks here have various events that happen. When it's your turn, you decide to explore. You turn over one of these cards and various things will happen. Sometimes, for example, in this case, you find vines. And this card is a brown card, which means it's added over to the other pile over here on the board, which gives you another action. Now, if all these cards are full, then you have to replace one of them, so you have to make a tough choice as to which one you'll replace. Other times, when you turn these cards over, and there's another brown action. Other times you will find something on them. For example, here's a coconut palm tree here, and it shows a +1 up here in the corner, and I'll talk about that in just a second, but also it gives you a thing. For example, if the exploration group agrees to lose 1 energy per explorer, we'll add 2 forage tokens to the supply and 1 permanent food to the storage. So that's a useful thing that you can do, but you have to decide as a group. That +1 is important though on there, because what that means is you will be moving this token here 1 on this path. The farther that token moves, the harder it will be to come back from your exploration. Sometimes these cards up here will also show feet on them, and when it shows a foot on it, you will move your tokens one on this path. Now, these cards are not the only cards in the game. At the beginning of a game, you're going to look through a pile of cards that have zeros on them. You're not going to look through them, actually, you're going to shuffle them, and 8 of these cards are going to be put into the decks, the appropriate deck. When one of these cards comes up, it will often start basically like a choose your own adventure style. And it will often refer to cards from this deck here, which is numbered from 1 to 105. And these cards are added to the different decks or come out on the board in different spaces. And I don't really want to show you any of these because there's stories. You can find buried treasure. You can go hunting in a pirate ship. There's all sorts of cool things. Sometimes a card will come down here and stay there. And instead of turning over the top card of a deck, you can explore this card instead. Now, one person's marker gets to the green and they go exploring, they'll start from this deck, which has harder and more annoying stuff, and then you go to this deck. Now, as players explore, this is going to be moving along down here due to the cards being turned over, and at some point you're going to decide to come home. You're going to decide to run away. When you do so, you need to roll equal to this number or higher, or else you're lost. When you're lost, which is a bad thing, you'll put your token there, and you don't get to take actions next turn. So, you can spend actions to move this down farther until you finally can roll and get off, and you can spend energy to re-roll your roll, but you don't want to be lost because that can hurt the party as a whole. At the end of each turn, players are going to need to eat food, one for each player. You'll need to be spending wood to build things and also to keep the fire going. If the fire is not going, everybody loses energy, but if the fire is going, people will gain energy. There's a few other features to the game, but that's basically the extent of it, as players are attempting to explore to the end of the island and to get all the items on one of the event cards. I'm about to heap a lot of praise on this game. This game is great. So let me start off with a few small negative things. First of all is the semi-cooperative nature of the game. The game comes with these little tokens here. I showed them to you, the ones that you can write in a journal and get these tokens. And you get these tokens through other ways, through exploring and finding things will happen to you and get these tokens. At the end of the game, when you're rescued, whoever has the most of these tokens is the ultimate winner of the game. And because they're the ones who basically write a book about their journeys, and they are the ones who are remembered. This game is already hard as it is. It's already a cooperative game. Getting these tokens and using them in that regard just seems dumb. I really hate that part of the game. I don't mind a semi-cooperative game if the game is focused on that, but here you're trying to get off the island. But simple solution. Just totally ignore that part of the game. Who cares? These tokens can be discarded to get +1 to any die roll, which is critical. So, I don't mind that so much. In fact, you can make the game harder and make these don't give you +1, but I thought the game was plenty hard as it is. Now, the rulebook also was a little confusing at points, but there's a lot going on in the game. However, good things about the game. Where do I start? Really, it's a worker placement game, but you can't get more workers in the game, so that's fine. I mean, you have a limited number of actions, so you're working together as a group. Oh man, a crate washed up on the beach. We really want those items from the ship. But at the same time, we do need to get more wood, and somebody needs to go exploring. How far do you go when you explore? Are you going to build a shelter, which is a lot of energy and a lot of wood to build that shelter, but oh, the benefits of it are so useful, or should we get the bonfire going? How are these random events going to affect everybody? So that's really cool. But what's really neat is the game feels like a choose-your-own-adventure. Because the different cards, the zero cards go in, each one of those starts off an adventure, and you can sometimes, you can find, for example, a cave. Are you going to explore the cave? It's probably a waste of time to do so, but man, you can get some really cool stuff if you do so to help you get off the island. But wow, it's a lot of energy. You run across natives and pirates and all sorts of things, and so each game is going to be different, and really that makes this game fairly expandable because you'll be able to get packs of cards with more zeros, throw those in and have more numbers and go on. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying the game needs expansions. I'm saying that that's a possibility. The components are pretty cool. The artwork is good. The whole thing is just chock full of flavor and theme. And so I'm giving this really 2 thumbs up. I think it's a really good cooperative game. Now, recently, there was a game that came out called Robinson Crusoe. And there's going to be a lot of comparisons between the two games, and I'll probably have to do a video or talk about them. I will say this, I think both games are excellent. I think they're very similar in a lot of ways, but in other ways they're very different. Robinson Crusoe has a cause-action sequence in it, which is really neat. This one has a stronger storyline in some way, a more cohesive storyline perhaps. It's going to be tough, I'll tell you what. But Castaways is an incredibly good game, one that I highly recommend. I like the cooperative nature of it. I think it's tough. I don't think it's impossible though. And I think each time when you're done with the game, you'll be left with a very cool story that happened as the game progressed. I hate that monkey, and you'll see why as the game progresses. A very good game, Castaways.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door!